Okay, so I am Allison Smith. I am a photographer and founder of Dandelion Digital. I work with small business owners to post with purpose through photography and social media, elevating your brand visibility to reach your ideal clients. I'm going to go through a few different steps on how you can do your own photos and bring them into your social media to do just that. So if we want to get started, I'm going to share, and perfect. Now, can everybody see this? Good. Now I am going to just show, reduce my screen with everybody, so I can't necessarily see you. There will be a point in the chat where I will go back in and look for questions. So if you have any questions as we go along, please feel free to type them in as they come up in your mind so that I can find them when we get to that point. So again, my name is Allison. I have had a camera in my hand literally since high school. I went to high school in Ottawa. I am a Air Force daughter and an Army wife. So moving around a lot has been the way of everything in my life, really. I can kind of tell you my life story based on where I actually lived at the time. My company name is Dandelion Digital, and that came from being a base brat. Our official flower is the dandelion, and the day of the base brat happens to be my birthday. So my 3 kids are base brats. My husband is actually from Cape Breton. My family is in Alberta. We moved here for his retirement posting, and now this is home. So I am just outside of Halifax. Whenever I start with this, I always start with photo tips, because where else do we start, right? So the most important thing to know about photography is light. Photography literally means painting with light. Lighting is key. When I was a wedding photographer and I would have, the brides or the mums of the brides, and they would look outside and they'd have these bright blue skies, they would be, yes, it's sunny. And I'd be like, no, it's sunny. The reason for that is that sun has so many harsh shadows and so much glare that ideally, if you're shooting outside, your best friend is clouds or shade. I use this photo as my example because this was a shoot that I did a couple of years ago. This is Erica. She is a bookkeeper and her business name is Signal Operations. So she wanted the lighthouse from St. George Island just off the waterfront in her photo. And we were, if you know where this is on the Halifax waterfront, we're just over by the Discovery Center, and not a cloud in the sky. It was nothing but bright sunlight and harsh shadows. And you can see in this photo, even then, she's having a little bit of a hard time keeping her eyes open. You can tell that there's some glare and some squint, but you can also see, even though she's got this beautiful highlight in her hair, her face is evenly lit. And the way I did that was right outside that Discovery Center is a wooden pergola, if you're familiar with the area. And I literally had her standing in the strip of shade from one of the beams in the pergola, just to get that sun off of her face and stop her from squinting. When you're outside and you're shooting, if you can get cloud cover or wait for clouds, then that's fantastic. If not, maybe go around a building where you can get into some shade or under a tree, or just find pockets where you're outside of that bright light, because you either get squinty eyes, deep shadows, glare, or a lot of reflection that just creates that. And especially down the waterfront where the water itself is like a mirror, and that adds in so much more light. The other thing to be aware of is backlight, where you become so dark in front of everything so bright. So lighting really is key. The other thing to be aware of in your photos is distractions. That could be people walking behind you, or sorry, behind your subject. If they're walking behind you, of course, that's fine. But if they're walking behind your subject, give them time to get through your photo frame. If you are shooting in an area that is very cluttered, pick things up and move them, because chances are once you see the picture, it's going to drive you crazy that they're there. And it's so much easier just to pick something up and move it than it is to try and remove it from the photo after the fact. I'll give you an example. Before I moved to Halifax, we were in Edmonton, and I worked for an event services company. And I would go on the road to their trade shows or their conferences, galas, all these things. And I would do the photos and the social media posting live while I was there. And on those events that I couldn't travel to, the guys on the team would send me their photos. And I mean, it was great to have them, but I usually had to do a little bit of work in them in Photoshop, and that was fine. But I remember one very distinctly. They sent me this beautifully finished room set up for a gala. It had all the chairs on the stage, all the round tables with their cloths, and all perfectly decorated. And the only thing that I could see was the Tim Hortons cup that they left on the very front table closest to them. He probably literally put it there to take the picture. And it was such a distraction. It was easily removable, but what would have been even easier is just to move it to a table outside of the photo. So always be aware of those distractions. The other thing that I always recommend is shoot multiples. Shoot different angles, add video, build your photo bank. And a photo bank we'll talk about in a bit. But basically what it is it's a vault you keep all your photos in. But when you're doing something that you don't necessarily want to recreate all the time, or you're at some place that you're not necessarily going to get back to, don't take just one picture. Take several. If you have different angles and you have different ways of showing that event or that item or that person, then you can reuse those photos in your social media without it always looking like it's exactly the same photo. So it could be as simple as taking something from the left versus something from the right versus something from above. Maybe adding in a little bit of video, because right now, of course, we know that on social media, video is very good for your algorithm. And edit your photos. Make sure they're clean and crisp and straight. My personal pet peeve is crooked photos. Every cell phone camera that we use has the option of straightening your photo. On an iPhone, it's as simple as going into the crop button. And as soon as that crop button opens up, the first thing you'll see is a little slider on the bottom that lets you straighten your photo. If you have your grid lines on, you can actually see where they're straight, either to the horizon or vertically to something that's within the photo. And images of you and what you offer will always outperform stock photos. My goal in life is to get people away from stock photos. That's why I really have delved into the brand photography, is that we want to showcase you, what you create, what you offer, what you do, the behind the scenes of who you are. Because a stranger in a stock photo shouldn't be the person that represents your business. You should be. And the selfies. Everybody loves or hates to take their selfies, but a couple of quick tips. We're going to go back to that lighting. Avoid harsh lighting. If you're inside, stand in front of a window. That gets you nice, indirect, ambient light. But it also will illuminate yourself. And if you're at all like me and you're, in that 50s range, you want everything as soft as it can be. When you're outside, if you can stand right on the edge of the shade, so, you've got your line of shade, everything over here is in shade and everything over here is in the sun. Stand in the shade as close to the sun area as you can before you start to squint. That will give you that indirect light that takes away those harsh shadows, takes away that squint, and just lights you up beautifully. If you turn your back to it, then you are going to be backlit, which means you're just going to be very dark and your background will look awesome. Same thing with it at the window. The other thing I always recommend is wipe your lens. I use a product. I don't know if you can see this. No, you can't see this. I will show this to you later because, of course, I'm on the screen. I use a local-based product from a company called Nothing Cleaner. And they have a device cleaner. I use it for my phone. I use it for my computer. I use it for my camera. It is completely organic. And especially when we're talking about things like our cell phone, it goes in and out of our pockets. It goes on the counter. It goes on, I'm just speaking from experience. It goes on the kitchen counter, the bathroom counter. It goes on the car seat. It goes in the bags. It goes everywhere and it's filthy. There have actually been studies that your cell phone is dirtier than your toilet seat. And we put that up to our face. So if we actually use it as a phone, we put that up to our face. So what we want to do is make sure that your camera is clean so that your photos don't have those smudges that might be on your lens. When you're taking your selfie or even a photo of any kind that you're in person on, always bring yourself forward. So stick your butt back, bring your shoulders back, but lean forward from the hips just a little bit so that your face or your eyes are the focus. Look into the lens, not at the screen. If you can see me, you can see that I'm actually looking into my camera lens, and I'm just sort of glancing every now and then at my my notes so that my canvassing so that I can see what it says. But always make eye contact. You can tell if somebody is looking at themselves on their phone rather than where the camera lens is. So know where your camera lens is. And if you have a pop socket on the back, I always thought those were just a tween toy, but it turns out they actually have a function. They let you hold your phone so that it leaves your thumb free so that you can hit the screen to focus or hit the shutter to take the photo or start the video. And it's really easy then to go between vertical and horizontal. And I always recommend going back to take lots of angles, include that as vertical and horizontal because you have different platforms for your social media. And if you can, actually go hands-free. That gets that whole kind of awkward shoulder, arm, forearm out of the photo. If you see the window that I'm in front of, right behind my arm, you can see that it's a two-piece window, so that raises up. So what I often do is I'll lift that window up to eye level, put my phone on it, and then put the self timer on to go hands-free and step back with it in portrait mode. And I can do that in either video or in portrait, or use a ring light. That not only gives you extra light for when you're maybe in darker places, but it holds your phone for stability. And then you can either put on the timer or just click your shutter and step backwards and go from there. And they're not expensive. Like I have a kit from Costco, it was $30. It even came with a mic if I wanted to do any kind of voice recording. So we talked just now about taking the different angles. When you're taking your photos for your social media, you want to be aware of what your end platform is. If you are using LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, or X as it's now called, you want your photos to be horizontal. They have an optimum size of 1200 pixels. If you are doing stories, reels, TikToks, Pinterest boards, anything like that, you want your photos to be vertical. Now with Instagram, because you can crop it either way, you're fine. But the key too is when you're posting on your social medias, I always recommend don't post it and then just automatically share it to the other platforms. So a lot of people will set their post up on Instagram and then auto share to Facebook. But now what's happened is that your picture on Facebook is square instead of the optimal 1200 pixels. They are more forgiving now than they were in the past, but it also gives you an opportunity to showcase your photos in a different way. And we're going to look at that in a little bit. So this is what a photo bank might look like. You have all of your content material stored in one place. This could be in your Dropbox or your Google Drive or your hard drive or on your desktop. You build a folder that has a project name, and then you break it up into where everything else would be. So if, for instance, we are building a social media folder, then you break it down into, say, videos, photos, graphics, and copy. Copy is what you write out. Then you break those further. So if you're doing videos, you've got 4 reels, saved reels. So those would be reels that are already created. And if you're doing YouTube or tutorials, and I mean, I don't need to read all of them. You can see that. Feel free to take screenshots as we go. But the idea of it is you are not looking in multiple different places, not sure of where you have kept things. It's just a great way of keeping your efficiency and being more conscious of the time that you spend on your content creation and where things are. So what a lot of people use are flat lays on product photos. So what these do is they give you a great way to talk about your products or your business. And it's always encouraged again to go back and do these yourself so that they are specialized to you. Now, this could have been something that I just pulled out of Canva. But if you notice on the post-it note, it says post with purpose, and that's the name of my course. So everything, this clock is on my wall. That was my day timer. That's actually my keyboard. So these are things that are personal to me, which makes this unique to me. Nobody else will have this photo because I didn't grab it off of Canva. I won't see it on somebody else's social media 4 times in 5 different ways. So how can you take flat lays to showcase some of your products? So here's a couple of examples. If you were a baker, we've got this going straight from top to bottom, and it's on a raised Lazy Susan. And you can tell it's raised because the muffin and the tools or the spoons below are out of focus, where the muffins on the top and the crumbs are crisp and clean. If I wanted to show something straight on, such as the soaps, I'm going across. I've got them piled up on top of each other, and so that I have a little bit of more interest. They're not just stacked like bricks. They're in all kinds of different directions and sizes and colors and textures. The soap puffs in the back are slightly out of focus. Then I could also take it at that eye level angle. So if I was now in this case, we're talking about a nutritionist, we've got some healthy snacks that we're going to have maybe on our desk as we work. So the angle of the photo is as if we were looking down from our desk. Also for service providers, you can create your own photos to talk about the services that you provide. So anybody in the service industry, you know, a laptop is pretty much key. Then you just add in some of the little accessories that talk about the things that you use in your business. So if I was to create a caption for a photo like this about a service-based business, I may say something like this. Which of these items do you think is most important to running my business? Absolutely right, it's the coffee. Without it, I could barely function. Coffee ensures I'm ready to always look after your accounts and provide the best advice I can for your peace of mind. What about you? What's your morning ritual that kickstarts your day? So here's what I've done with this caption. I have shared what I offer. I have told them that I'm going to look after the accounts. So maybe I'm an accountant, maybe I'm a bookkeeper, maybe I'm a social media manager. But I look after your accounts and provide the best advice for your peace of mind. That is what I offer, and that is what I solve for the solution I solve for you. I've also shared something about me as a person. I love coffee. It's a fact. I've also have a call to action. Now, my call to action doesn't say call me, book me, buy me. It is answer me. So my call to action is, what about you? I'm asking a question of what is your kickstart? So I'm looking for engagement. My call to action doesn't always have to be asking for a sale. We want to build on social media. So we ask for engagement. And once we build a rapport with people through engagement, then we start asking about the sale, right? So you ask for engagement, you ask for feedback, you ask for all these things, and then you ask for business. You'll also notice the photos. I have horizontal for certain platforms. I have vertical for certain platforms. And then I have the square. And not all of them are exactly the same. You'll see that the two on the end are, and then the one on the square is just cropped tighter. But the one in the middle has been moved around. You'll notice the arrows are a different place. Little things like that, the distance of where the paper pad is and the angle that it's at is different. So It may all look the same, but just those slight little tweaks can make a difference. So what I want to talk to you about, and we mentioned that we were going to talk about camera settings. And here's where that's a little bit different, in that not everybody has the exact same camera. I have an iPhone, but I have learned that not everybody does. So I'm not going to go through all the details of an iPhone and then try and figure out a Samsung or a Google Pixel or whatever Android phone other people have. Now, I do go in depth with my iPhone settings and all the different features in my course, Post to Purpose Through Photography and Social Media. But for today, I want to show you a camera that you can download regardless of what phone you have from the App Store or the Play Store or whatever it is. And that's the Lightroom mobile camera. If you go to your App Store, and you can feel free to do it now or you can do it later, you can see here, this is what the app will look like. And it is free. So if you have an Adobe account, you will get the like the subscription version. And if you don't, that's okay. Just like Canva, it gives you so many great features on the free account. You just get that many more with the paid account. So once you find your app, you can just open it, or once it's on your desktop, if you hold the icon, you will get a little menu and it will say take a photo, and that gives you quick access to the camera app. And this is what it looks like. You have 3 camera options. Now, there used to be 2 others that were exclusive to iPhone. So if you were ever familiar with that, they just took those away in June. For whatever reason, they were saying that they just didn't work well with people. So everybody will have automatic, professional, and HDR. Now, I never recommend to use automatic. For that purpose, you might as well just use the phone camera. I am going to show you how to use the professional camera on here. And will open that up down here where there's the drop down and it says Pro. You also here will have your lenses that you can scroll through to select the one you want. And it will depend on what phone model you have to what lenses you get. My previous phone, I had an iPhone 11. I got 2 lenses. Now I have an iPhone 13 Pro, so I have 3 lenses. I can't tell you what the Android ones have, but if you know, you can throw it in the chat and that would be great. Some of the adjustment tools that the Lightroom camera has are really great too, and I'm going to show you those in just a minute. You'll see up here they have their different menus, but what we're going to look at are down here. We have our exposure compensation. This allows you to adjust how much light is coming in. If it's really dark, you can adjust it to be brighter or vice versa. You have your shutter speed, which if you use a camera at all, like a digital SLR or anything, shutter speed is how fast things are taken. So if you are taking pictures that are in motion, you want a higher shutter speed to stop that motion. But if you are in just something that's static, then you can keep it at a lower shutter speed and that's okay. ISO is your light sensitivity. White balance is going to tell you what color your picture is going to be. So if it's cloudy, if you're under fluorescent lights or tungsten lights, then those will go in there. And then you also have your manual focus adjustment. So right now, for instance, this square is showing you what is in focus, and the green, the highlighted green, is telling you this is exactly what is in focus. But if you want to adjust that at all, you can use the plus or minus. It's just like a scrolling bar, and you can adjust it to maybe show more in focus or less in focus. The other thing you'll see here are these zebra stripes. What this means is that this area of the photo is overexposed. What that means is it's washed out, it's bright, there's nothing in there. It actually is a window, and you're going to see that in just a minute. So I was okay with that. I didn't mind that there was nothing going to actually show up in the photo. But if I did mind and I wanted to adjust that, I would go over here to my exposure compensation and bring those down until the stripes were gone. So I'm going to do a little live demo, and this is going to take just a second of trying to adjust to my other camera, and I'm going to stop this screen share so that I can go to my camera. Now I see that there are a couple little things in the chat. Let me just see. Cool tip. Which of the phone cameras offer the best quality front selfie camera or back of camera? Always. The selfie camera is just that. It's your selfie camera. But if you are taking pictures, always try and use the back of camera. Cool tip, the volume control on the earbuds that come with the iPhone can also work as a shutter. Yes, you can use them. You can also use, if you have a Apple Watch, there's a camera remote. And if you turn it on, it lets you see what you're doing in the camera. And then you can push the shutter from the camera or from your phone, which is cool. Any recommendations to photograph glass? Oh, I don't have time for that. Yes, but maybe DM me on that, Monica. All right, give me a minute here. I'm going to share. I don't know how much of this you can see. Perfect. Okay. So you can see here the LR. That is my Lightroom app. And if I click on that, it's going to say, oops, hang on. There. I didn't take my finger off. I want it to say take photo. There. And now there's my camera. So I'm going to bring this over here and you can see this is my little setup that I've created. And what I would normally do is I have an IKEA desk, and if you can see closely, I have put on like sticky, it's like cupboard paper so that I can have this marbled look. My drawback right now is you can see I have all of this sun coming through my window, which is leaving lines. And if I want that for a dramatic effect, that's great. You can also see what I was talking about with backlighting and how my subjects here are dark. What I want to do now is I'm going to jump up on my stool and I'm going to pull down my blind. There. Now my lighting is even, or at least more even. But what I also want to do is create a light box. So I have these wonderful boards that I got from the dollar store, and I'm going to bring those in a minute. So what I want to show you is if you create a product or a service or anything like that, and you want to be able to take your photos, what you do is find a way of just displaying them that really works well for your brand. Now, I'm just showing this as maybe I made this candle holder, and because it's got the reds and the golds, I want to emphasize that. So I brought in a book and I brought in a couple of little rattan balls, and then I just threw in something to just kind of sparkle it up a little bit. When I'm using a candle holder, I do want to actually, burn myself. I do want to, here, I'm gonna, so I'm on telephoto. I'm gonna go to wide, ultra wide, there. Now you can see what I'm doing. I always want to light it. I don't want it to just sort of be for naught. Same thing with coffee cups or teacups or water glasses. If you are using any of those for your photos, please, please, please actually put something in it rather than just saying, rather than just pretending that there's something in it, because a lot of times that will show up in your photo and then it's noticeable. So what I'm doing here is I have these foam boards from the dollar store, and they're just hinged with painter's tape. And I've created a light box. And what that does is it captures the light from the window window, and it bounces it back onto the subject that was going to get maybe a little bit of backlighting. It also now gives me a backdrop so that I don't have my messy office in behind, and it's just going to be nice and clean and crisp and white. And now if I wanted, I can add text to it, and I have space to do all of that. You'll notice that those zebra lines are there, and that's just because that's the brightness of my window. So what I want to do, and I'm just going to grab my phone again, and I'm going to jump up on my stool. So here is my camera through Lightroom. And if I wanted to adjust my exposure, I can do that on this slider. If I wanted to adjust my shutter speed, and if you notice up on the very top, it's showing you what they are and how these affect the photo. If I wanted to adjust my ISO, which is my sensitivity to light, I can do all of that right in here. If I wanted to use preset lighting conditions, I've got light bulb, fluorescent, sunlight, cloud. I don't like to use any of those. I'm going to reset this. The thing that I want you to walk away with today, if you choose to use the Lightroom camera, and you'll notice I have it on Pro. When I go into white balance, you'll notice on the far right, there is a eyedropper. What that does is it reads the light for me. So if I come in and I click on that light dropper, you see how I now have that box. If I take a picture of that, it has now read the light that I'm in. You'll also see I have a level, so I'll know how bright, or sorry, how straight my photo is if I want it on an angle. And I'm able to flip my phone around very easily because I'm using my sock pocket to hold it. So I'm going to put my thumb here, and there is everything green. That means that's what's in focus. And I'm just going to take my photo. And if I go down to this square on the bottom, there's my photo. Now what I want to do, because I'm always taking extra angles, is I'm going to reset again. I'm going to come back. I'm going to retake that. And then I'm going to come in here. And I want to move this around. Never be afraid to move things. I'm going to be aware of where the lines are. I want to show that light a little bit better. It actually looks a little bit darker than I would like. So I'm going to adjust this just like, oh. Now there's my photo. So now I'm not really happy with that angle, so that's okay. I'm going to turn it this way a little bit. And I'm going to reset that. I'm going to take it off wide. I was on ultra wide. That's why I was getting the funny angles. And I'm going to hold that to be in focus. And I'm going to take that photo. Now, if I want to come back in, and let's just use this last one. I'm going to hit the X up top, and I'm going to find that photo. And here I can do any kind of adjustments that I want to do. So for instance, if I go over and I go to light, do I think maybe this is a little lighter than I wanted? Maybe just a little. Maybe I want to add some contrast. Actually, I'm going to reduce the contrast and the highlights. And I'm going to bring up the whites just a little bit. And then I'm okay with the color, but if I wanted it to go a little bit cooler or a little bit warmer, I could do that. But because I used that light dropper, my color is pretty bang on. Now I would normally go in and I would kind of take out those extra lines where it you can see over in the corner I've got where the board's separated, but maybe I can just crop it right out. There. And there's my photo. So that's just a really nice option to have, regardless of what camera you're on or what phone you own, in how you can use the Lightroom mobile camera for your photos. And again, you can take it whether you're doing product photography. The foam boards from the dollar store were literally $1.50 each. I typically have 3 because if I don't want that marble look underneath, I can just have plain white. You can also use colored ones. Don't be afraid to use colors. You could use scrapbook paper to add extra textures and patterns to your photos as well. Any questions at all? Perfect. I'm going to go back to our presentation. Okay, so here's a couple of examples of things that I have seen with some of my clients and how they have done their product photography or their samples. A lot of times things get very cluttered. Simple is more. Like I had a candle and I just put in a couple little accessories, but at all times the candle was always kind of the star of the show. So you want to make sure that you know what is the star of your photo so that it doesn't confuse other people. Here they were displaying baked goods, but they were wrapped. And there was this great big plant and there was all of these dark shadows and it was very cluttered. So what we did was we decluttered them. We made them bright. So this is literally that same foam board background. We just pulled out one of the different wrappings, put it on a plate, and this was themed right around Thanksgiving. So we added in some fall colors, some little accessories, but we can see that the baking is the star of what they are trying to show. So some of the things that you can use as props, depending on whether you are product-based or service-based. If you want to take a quick screenshot of that, feel free to go ahead. What I also do is I keep all of my props in a box so that I know that those are specifically for that. They're not going to get wrecked. They're not going to get misplaced. And then they're always going to be clean and very available very quickly. So if we talk about how we take our photos and then we apply them to social media, we also want to be aware that there is a difference between how we speak on social media as a business versus our personal accounts. So this is a photo that I took at, and it just kind of, I'm just going to see if it'll go backwards. Oh, wow, not that far backwards. It was a photo that I took at Fisherman's Cove. And it was a beautiful foggy day. You can see the fog is right here. And I could have, as a personal account, just said something about the fog. But as a business account, I want it to be an invitation to read more and to engage, to have those calls to action, to share my knowledge, my expertise, my insights, and the benefits of us working together without being salesy. So rather than just saying foggy days are peaceful and wet, what did I actually say? I'm going to be honest. I try to give a compliment rather than a complaint, but as a photographer, I have one pet peeve I have to bite my tongue on. If I could give a single tip on how to quickly make a photo better, it would be this: make sure it's straight. I think I mentioned that earlier. So, and then I give a tip. How can I do this with my iPhone? Arg. And literally the same detail I gave you earlier, which was use the scroll bar on the cropping tool. And then I had a call to action. What tip would you share? When I shared it, I have here my Facebook post and my Instagram post. And you'll notice square and horizontal. So I honored the optimum preferred size of each platform. I also didn't share them back to back. You'll notice that this was on the 13th and this was on the 22nd. So they were a few days apart. And my captions are different. Here, I have a hook, something that brings people in, that first line that they see before the read more, so that they can actually want to click read more and get those extra details. So I said, caption this. Here's the difference between a personal social media versus a social media for business. And I basically just gave you the exact same example that I had. And then I had, here's what I did. Do you have another tip? So this is exactly what I showed you, but I'm actually explaining what I did. I established myself as a photographer, both with my photo and by saying it as what I do. I shared something about me. I shared a tip. I shared a how-to. I asked for engagement by asking a question. Here's what I did not do. I did not ask you to book my services, call me, or go to my website. I did not expect anything from you except to be social with me on social media. Why? Building community first builds opportunities in the future. Do you agree? Let's have a conversation. DM me or share it in the comments. That was Facebook. On Instagram, I kept it shorter and sweeter, and I added a bunch of hashtags. Hashtags are great on Instagram, but not necessarily as effective on Facebook. Facebook also recommends only 3 hashtags, and they ask that they be more specific to either the event, the location, or your brand. Whereas on Instagram, you can add hashtags for almost anything. So I have the optimized photo, different captions, different dates, same tip. Then I later turned it into a poll in stories. So again, asking for more call to action, more engagement. And I've now asked them to read the post, to go back into the original post. So one photo used 3 different ways, 3 different social media, not necessarily platforms, but methods of use. So how are we doing for time? We're pretty much out of time, aren't we? Priyanka?
Yeah, we still do have a few minutes, and there's a question in the chat also, Allison, if you wanted to take that.
Okay,
Has
let's
asked.
go to the chat. Do you use the Adobe Lightbox with your iPhone all the time, or do you recommend another app as you are an iPhone user? I have Adobe Photoshop for professionals and an iPhone, and I'm interested in your preference. I also have Adobe Lightroom and Photoshop. I am an iPhone user. I use the Lightroom if I am doing flat lays, like the product shots that I just showed you. If I'm just taking pictures with my iPhone, I typically, especially now that I have the iPhone Pro camera, I typically do use that a lot more. But I love the Adobe Lightroom camera and the ease of just having all of that extra editing software right at hand. Otherwise, I will edit within my iPhone, and I do sometimes even use an app called Snapseed. Mostly just if it is never with people, always with landscapes, if I just want to give it a little bit more pop, because it has like an HDR feature that's really cool. Okay. I'm just gonna, I have one other tip that I'm just gonna take advantage of sharing while I have your attention, and that is usernames. One of the things that I'm doing right now is I have a social media client that is a craft show. And the dilemma that I come across a lot, I'm just going to go to stop share and be able to see everybody. One of the dilemmas that I have a lot is if I want to tag somebody's business and they don't have their usernames optimized to their Facebook and their Instagram, it becomes very difficult and very confusing. And a lot of times, if somebody is trying to tag you and they do that where they post to both Instagram and Facebook, if your usernames are not consistent between the 2 platforms, because both platforms are owned by Meta as their main company, then they can get lost. So you'll notice my username on my Instagram, on my Facebook is at Dandelion Digital HFX, because somebody else already had Dandelion Digital in the States. So I just added the HFX, which is a really easy, quick solution. But if I didn't have them the same, or if I hadn't optimized or set my username on Facebook, which you have to do manually, then whenever somebody tags me on Facebook, if they don't, they're not consistent. So for instance, I had a client on, well, not my client, but the craft show's client, and their Facebook was not optimized. It just has a bunch of numbers at the end, which means that's just your user ID. You're not taggable, which means people can't give you mentions. You don't know if people are talking about you. And it's a quick link for people who read someone else's post to find you. So my one tip about the social media, well, it's not my one tip. When you're using Facebook and Instagram together, I always say, don't post at the same time. Always post them a couple of days or a couple of hours at least opposite. If you're batching it in Meta, you actually have the option to open it up and schedule it. And again, that's not something we have time for today, but it is something that I go through in depth in my course. But if you have your usernames consistent between the two, it makes your clients or your customers' life much easier to find you and to mention you and to talk to you and to share with you. And that is all I will leave you with today.
Allison, I think there's one more question by Crystal, probably. She's asking, would the Lightroom app work for an artist taking photo of photo?
If the, let me see. Would the Lightroom app work for an artist taking photos of photos? Yes, it would. What you want to do is make sure that your subject matter, your photo, is evenly lit. So the nice thing is, because, and even in the iPhone or probably in all of them, you always have that level, but it always make sure that you're taking it straight, because if it's not straight on, if you're at any kind of off angle, then it's going to affect the perception of what you're taking it of. So you want to make sure that your photo is a true representation. And then use the sliders in the editing area for the light and the color to make sure that your colors are represented truly, because that is the biggest thing about taking pictures of pictures, is that you want to make sure you are representing the trueness of your art. I did some pictures for an artist and she wanted her paintings made into greeting cards, and that was her number one priority, was the accuracy of the colors. 100% see what username is available across all your platforms before picking it. Hi, Jay. Yes, 100%. I even, before I confirmed my business name, I made sure that I had access to Dandelion Digital as a domain name and as a social media option. And like I said, I added the HFX, and that was a quick fix.
Great. So Allison,
Don't know
I
if you
think
mentioned it. If using a wide angle, move your body so you can hold the camera phone straight and get the photo you want. Don't know. There you go. Jay knows. Jay's a photographer as well.
so. Yeah, Allison, I think I don't think there are more any more questions. So I would like to thank you. Thank you so much. It was the whole 1 hour was filled with so many great tips. I loved to know more about Lightroom. I think I haven't used it myself, but I loved how all the information you have tightened together with your tips and your live demo. Thank you so much. And I hope everybody who joined today got a lot of insights regarding it. So, so yeah, thank you.